Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our Penny Dreadful City of Angels Season 1 Episode 2 Thoughts video. Just finished watching the latest episode of Penny Dreadful City of Angels. I'm just going to be sharing my general thoughts on the episode. In this episode, we see the aftermath of the clash between the police and the Mexican community, and we also see that Tiago and Lois continue their investigation of the murders, which leads them to a televangelist church, with whose head kind of person is Sister Molly. So yeah, this episode was kind of interesting, a little bit, I want to say slower pace, but a little bit more. We're diving into the story now. First episode was setting up these characters, and now we're learning a little bit more about them. We start by seeing that Raul, Tiago's brother, who he shot last episode, is actually still alive and is on life support. I guess the bullet ricocheted off of his skull as opposed to killing him, which is one of those things that anytime I see in a TV show, I just automatically assume if you get shot in the head, I think you're dead. But I always forget TV. Drama. So he's on life support, and we see that all of his family members, only his younger brother knows that he's the one who shot his older brother, or his other brother Raul. I think it's his older brother, Tiago's older brother. I think Raul's Tiago's older brother. It's hard for me to keep track of this sometimes. But yeah, so that was kind of interesting to see that conflict. It was one of those things where I'm like, this is one of those things you shouldn't keep secret for long too. It's one of those ones that comes back to bite you, that you didn't tell your mom right away that you shot your brother. It seems like one of those things you're supposed to own up to. Don't let your younger brother tell on you either. So that part, I felt the tension of that scene, definitely. So you can see, his mom doesn't know and his sister doesn't know, but his younger brother knows, and you can see that tension between them. And he even says, like, if Raul dies, you're not part of the family anymore, which is, I guess, understandable. It's shooting your brother, but it's a whole situation. It's all context, obviously, but that whole situation, I was just like, whew, I don't envy this character situation and having to deal with that. And I know it's just gonna ramp up even more, unless we'll get to that. But yeah, so that was kind of interesting to see. Another part that was interesting of that, when they were at the hospital and Tiago was going to visit, he was bringing Lois in as well, his partner, who had been shot, and ends up covering up for Tiago's brother, who was the one who shot Lois. And so that part I found really interesting, and I like, because it's just makes me like Lewis's character even more. Like, I already started to like him in the first episode, obviously, like his kind of dynamic, particularly with Tiago, just kind of busting in his balls a little bit, but also willing to stand up for him against the other officers. So I like that, right away he was like, no, I didn't see anybody. Nothing happened. You didn't see anything. Nobody saw anything. Nothing happened. And I was like, that's a partner. Way to go, Lois. Way to just take one for the team. Like, take a bullet for the team. So I just really liked that scene. It made me like Lewis's character even more than I already did, because I'm just like, yeah, that's the type of partnerships I like to see in movies and stories and TV shows and stuff, because that's the kind of partner you'd want if you had a partner, right? So that was just really fun part to see. Another interesting thing about Lewis' character in this episode, after they do a little bit of investigating in the church, we also see that he's got some friends who he's investigating in the Nazis that we met last episode, which I thought was just a fun little thing. And it kind of was like the way they talk. They're like, one of them even says, "Oh, a bunch of old Jews hunting down Nazis, or are going to stop the Third Reich invasion in America?" And I'm like, hunters? the Amazon show? Is this like a little just kind of funny that that had just come out, and so that's a little bit of a tie to that, but I just thought that was a fun little thing, a little story that they're going to add into there I was curious what the Nazi kind of side story was going to be, so now I'm even more interested to see how Lewis ties into it, and him investigating it and trying to uncover what they're up to and trying to stop them on his own. So I really like that they added that little part in. It is unfortunate that two of his friends were murdered by the Nazis, which I think is totally on Lewis. Man, you're the one guy who admitted he was just a tailor. I think he said he was a tailor. He definitely wasn't a cop or anything that was meant to be, following Nazis. So that part I was a little bit like, okay, come on, Lois, you're a detective. Obviously, you can handle yourself. You can read these situations. You understand why you're not supposed to follow a tail that close, and why you're not supposed to follow them into the hills where you're going to be secluded with some Nazis. So that part I was a little bit like, Lewis, okay, but he's going to feel bad, obviously, when he learns that his friends were murdered by the Nazis he sent them to follow. So that kind of, I don't want to say makes up for it, but yeah, that part I was just a little like, Lois, okay, man, you maybe needed a better plan for this. Maybe, or maybe you need to explain to your friends a little bit better. Maybe you should have recruited some other detectives. But yeah, so that was just an interesting element of the story, just adding to it, adding to both the Nazi storyline, which they had started setting up last episode with these Nazis are the ones that met with the counselor, and so now we're seeing that Lois is also investigating them. So I'm very interested to see where that side story goes as well. Some of the other interesting things that we see the counselor a little bit more in this one, under the influence of Magna. I'm going to refer to Magna's character, who pops up as a bunch of different ones, as just Magna anytime she shows up. So Magna, when she's in the disguise as the secretary, or secretary assistant person, to the counselor, kind of motivates him to start, have a press conference and kind of inciting social disorder against Mexicans over this, brawl. Well, not brawl isn't the right word for it, but the dispute that happened between the police and the Mexican community in the last episode. And so that part I was just like, oh, okay, we're going there and just going straight to inciting violence. All right. But it's interesting because, obviously Magna seems to be playing this role and influencing these different events. But I'm also not 100% sure what exactly her motivation is, other than maybe just purely creating chaos or trying to create death and destruction. That seems to be the main thing, but I'm curious to see if there's maybe more to it, if there's some kind of more of a layer to it than, she just wants to cause shit and make people die. So obviously it also plays into probably the prophecy, which they've talked about the race war between, and, that they talked about in the first episode. So I'm kind of curious to investigate more with this Magna storyline. We saw her pop up a few times. We saw her talking to Dr. Kraft at one point and really getting in his head, quite literally it seems. And so that part I'm just really also curious about, like what's his tie? Is it just his tie maybe to like the Nazis that she's trying to like take advantage of here? I'm curious to see how that plays out as well. Just because it seems to be like, I don't want to say going slow, I haven't gotten hints to what he, besides the fact that, he's like the leader of that like Nazi, one like kind of Nazi group we saw in the last thing, or besides that, I don't really see anything that he, any reason why she would need him for these things that she's trying to do, inside, like her, fooling the counselor makes sense. That guy's got a little bit more a pull on the community, and that can create bigger things. So I am just interested to see where that tie goes with her and Dr. Kraft. So what else do I have written down? Oh, we see a little thing with Teo's little brother being saved by this guy called Rico, and I think that's definitely going to come up again. I'm curious to see, like, that guy, the cops were really scared of that guy, and I was like, you clearly seem like you're probably some kind of like gang member or something along those lines, because that's the reason why I could see like a cop just being intimidated by one guy with a knife, because cops have guns. That's just the part that I was like, knife versus gun. I don't know if they had their guns on at that point, but knife versus gun. We've seen that before. It's called Indiana Jones. But anyways, so I thought that was interesting. I'm curious to investigate that a little bit more, see where Teo's little brother's story goes as well. Seeing him maybe try to, potentially seems like he's maybe going to join this gang or something like that. So I'm curious to see where that goes. What else? Oh yeah, then we just see a lot of Tiago and Sister Molly connecting a lot in this episode, and the only thing I could think of was, man, you're spending a lot of time talking to this girl who clearly doesn't know anything about what happened to the guy you're investigating. Maybe I'm just not a good enough detective here. I feel like you're just a little too smitten, maybe was that it? I don't know. That was just what I found a little interesting, because they got they did all the dishes and they sat down for some more coffee after that, and very little of it had to do with the guy he was investigating, the murder victim and his family. So that part I was just like a little bit like, okay, what's your angle here? Maybe, like, clearly I'm not a detective, so I don't know, but I'm curious what his angle was. Was it just, like I said, was he just get smitten and kind of fall into it, or was he trying to hope to like gain her trust and maybe get more information out of her. Maybe he thinks she's hiding something. I didn't get that sense, but I guess we'll find out more as this story goes forward. Yeah, then the episode ends with this last little thing where we see Tiego's mother. She's praying again to Santa Morte, and we see she gets visited again, but she doesn't actually realize she's being visited again. Really seems we see just like Santa Morte popping out of her vision, or out of her line of sight, and then we see that Raul is actually up and walking again. And I was like, wait, is he awake? Is this just a little like dream vision, that thing that you're having? Is this really happening? That's the trouble with some of these when you're watching a show about folklore and stuff like that. You never know what's actually happening, or if it's like a hallucination somebody's having. Is it just a dream? Is she just having a vision right now while she's communicating with Santa Morte? So that part I'm just like, okay, obviously we'll find out next episode if he's actually awake or if this was just a vision she had, but I'm guessing he's probably awake. They spent a lot of this episode also focusing on that he's on life support, and they have to decide in the next 2 or 3 days to take him off of life support. So I'm guessing he's probably awake, and that has some kind of probably tie into this whole prophecy, I'm guessing, and maybe tying into what Magna's plan is and how Santa Morte is planning to maybe stop her. That's the part that I'm a little confused about, because I'm not sure if these deity types are supposed to just be like just forces of the universe, or if they're individual characters that have like a motivation, or if they're just kind of forces of the universe that exist. Is she just the angel of death and she doesn't have her own motivations, she doesn't want anything, she's just kind of showing up? Or does she want more? Is she trying to stop her sister Magna, or is she just kind of existing as a force of the universe? So I'm just really curious to kind of explore that idea a little bit more, in particular with this folklore and through the more episodes of this series. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts on this latest episode of Penny Dreadful City of Angels. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what you thought about the latest episode. Thanks again for joining me today. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a good one.